Can you hear that? Oh, creaking, isn't it? Hello, photo fans. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back if it's not the first time you've been here. It's the new year. Yes, it's 2025. So happy new year to you if you're watching this at the new year, whatever new year it is. If it's August or something, then less so. Less so of the happy new year. Hope you had a lovely Crimble if you celebrate that sort of thing. If you don't, I hope you had a lovely non-Crimble. Anyway, to today's video, I'm going to do a couple of things today in today's video. Firstly is a quick look back, look forward for the channel, because you know it's that time of the year when I'm recording this, when people look back, they look forward, don't they, for some reason. Yeah. So looking back, this is my 16th video. The previous 15, most of them, a huge majority of them, have been POVs, haven't they? POVs. I've done POVs lots in London. Did one in Cambridge, I think, and some in New York. I've still got to put a couple more, at least one from New York up. Must get round to that, mustn't I? Sorry about the creaking chair, if you can hear it. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I also have done 3 videos kind of lampooning the sort of content creators' favourite topics in street photography, you know, the settings, tips and mistakes. Yeah, it's kind of lazy content, isn't it? It's kind of, oh, what am I going to do this week? Oh, I haven't done anything. Let's pretend to be educational and just say, you know, let's make a video on mistakes that I'm going to pretend I made, but I didn't really. That sort of thing. Yeah, so, or tips I wish I'd known when I started. Really? Turn your camera on. Oh, that sort of thing. Yes. No, you know, who needs that? Who needs all that? So, yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I'm going to carry on doing the POVs because, you know, that's one of the reasons I started the channel, in fact, because I was looking around on the old YouTubes at the POVs, and some of the British ones, I won't say English ones, some of the British, well, they are English probably, some of the British ones, truly awful, truly awful. I don't know how I would describe, what words I could use to describe them. No. And I always think that, you know, the reason I like doing the POVs is POVs are like a box of chocolates, aren't they? You never know what you're going to get. Although some of those, some of the POVs on the YouTubes, you kind of do know what you're going to get. Wow, what's that thing? How do I describe what you're getting? No, perhaps it will come to me in the edit. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm still going to do those. I'm still going to do the old POVs. I'm still going to do the kind of, you know, sort of joshing other people, other photographers, content creators on here with their sort of mundane remakes of a remake of a remake of a remake of a remake of other people's stuff. But I'm also, a couple of other things I'm going to try and start doing. I'm thinking about doing maybe a vlog, the occasional vlog, you know, a day in the life of a street photographer, that sort of thing. I don't know. I have to work out how the best way to do that without getting all my stuff nicked. Because I don't particularly want to be followed around. You see a lot of these kind of vlog type videos, especially when they're out shooting the street, they're being followed around by someone taking all the footage. You know, I don't want to do that. I want to be on my own when I'm taking pictures, usually. So yeah, so if I can work out how to do that in the best way, I will. What else? Oh yes, so the other thing, reactions. That's the new big thing for my channel this year, reactions. I don't know if you've noticed on YouTube, there's reactions to everything, reactions to all sorts of videos. There's reactions to music videos. There's reactions to food videos. There's reactions to video videos. Oh, no, maybe not. There's reactions to film videos, you know, films that you see at the cinema. There's reactions to motorcycling videos. There's reactions to politics videos. There's reactions to videos about horses. There's reactions to videos about cats. There's reactions to videos about food. Have I done food already? Possibly. There's reactions to videos. Anyway, there's lots of reactions to videos on the old YouTubes. It's a big old industry, so I thought I'd give it a go because I was looking on the old YouTubes and there doesn't seem to be anyone doing reactions to street photography. So I thought, well, why not? We all like to be authentic and genuine and authentic, don't we? So I think I'm going to give that a try. And today, this, after I've done this bit here, is going to be my first reaction video on the channel to another video. I'll tell you, it's very quickly. It's a video put out by a company called Wex Photo and Video. They're photographic retailers here in the UK. Anyway, more details about that when we start the actual reaction video. So yeah, so summing up, that's what the future holds. The POVs, the rib tickling, sort of the joshing of other content providers, possibly the vlogs, and the reaction videos. I'm definitely going to go reaction videos. Trying to do like 1 or 2 a month for sure. Yeah, great. I'm looking forward to that. Hope you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, well, you know what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you know what to do. Yeah, so that's what the future holds. I'm going to quickly set up for the reaction video. I'll probably change the camera to. I'm using the potato camera at the moment on the laptop. I'll probably change to a high quality webcam, and then we'll start the video. So give us a couple of seconds and we'll start. Okay, welcome back. Yeah. So this is what I'm on a different camera now. Yes, I started off with the potato camera, and now I've got the slightly better camera. So hopefully, yeah, that's better, isn't it? Hopefully it'll be even more high quality definition video. Yes, indeedy. So this is my first reaction video, like I was saying, and I am going to react to a video on YouTube put out by Wex Photography and Video. I think they're called Wex Photography and Video. Let's have a look at it, shall we? Because yeah, so here it is. I'll make it full screen. Right, so the online masterclass street photography in Paris, and this is the first one. There's 4 videos. This one is called The History of Street. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? We're all about the street. Like I was saying, this is by a company called Wex Photo and Video. I think they're basically photography retailers in the UK and possibly in Europe. I don't know. Oh, I had a little bit of green paper. There it is. And they've got this video channel, and I've got about 120,000 subscribers, I think, quite a lot. And they do like equipment reviews, and I don't know what they're. I mean, they're trying to sell stuff, so presumably their equipment reviews are rarely negative. And they do these sort of master classes and how-tos of all different sorts of photography. And this one is about street photography, and there's 4 chapters or 4 episodes to this masterclass, and this is the first one, The History of Street. It's all based in Paris, so I don't know. So we'll see how much history there actually is, or whether it's just about Paris. Then there's equipment to use, and this is used. I believe this series is supported by Canon, so there'll be lots of Canon equipment, I imagine. Then there's something called Street Stills or something, or Stills Street or something like that. In other words, cityscapes and architecture, that sort of thing. And then there's people. Okay, I think they'll explain all this in the video as well. So let's get started. You know, and we'll go through it, and as you know, as they say stuff, we'll stop and or I'll stop and talk about it. That's what a reaction video is, after all. Okay, let's go.
Hello to everyone watching today, and thank you for joining us on our street photography course. Over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be giving you some insight into street photography, from static architecture shots all the way through to moving people. Now, before we get started on that...
Oh yeah, that's what it was, static street photography. And street photography, isn't it? Static street photography. Oh, that's like a sort of oxymoron, isn't it? Static, and the idea of static and street photography. Well, yeah, okay, let's go.
Now, one thing we wanted to do, since we're here in Paris, is talk to you about the history of photography and where it really began. So, for those of you who don't know, street photography is...
So this is the history of photography. Although the title is the history of street, so is there some kind of tension there? Let's see.
Pretty much the OG of photography. So we're here in Place de la République. This is the first place that a photograph was taken. Behind us today you can...
Right, so no it wasn't. In fact, the earliest known photograph wasn't even taken in Paris. It was taken in Burgundy, which is also in France, admittedly. So it was in France. I'll put the where it was taken exactly, because I really don't want to crunch the French pronunciation of their place names, and I might even put a picture of what it is here. So right now you're seeing, hopefully, where the actual picture and where it was taken and who took it. It wasn't in Paris, though. This might have been the first place a photograph in Paris was taken. I don't know, to be honest.
You can probably see a McDonald's, maybe a lot of traffic, and definitely a lot of cars. So it's definitely not the same as it...
Okay. Right, okay, there's something I want to say.
...was, but this is really the place where...
Oh, this is my first reaction right here. Oh, there we go. You can tell, can't you?
So we're here in Place de la République. This is the first place that a photograph was taken. Behind us today you can probably see a McDonald's, maybe a lot of traffic, and definitely a lot of cars. So it's definitely not the same as it was, but this is really the place where photography...
Right, it definitely isn't the same as it was. Well, yeah, okay. Well, when was this first picture taken? We've got no date, have we? We've got no date of when it was taken, the first photograph. So, you know, how different is it now than it was then in the 1820s? It was the 1820s, the first photograph, you know, before the invention of the cars and McDonald's and the bicycle, you know, as we know it today, and definitely before the invention of Instagram. So that might, okay.
Photography began its journey. And the really great thing about that is that since then we've moved so far forward that you can take a picture in nanoseconds.
Okay, let's clarify that. It's possible that an image is captured in nanoseconds, but you can't do that if you're just an ordinary photographer. Okay, the equipment, the technology required to capture something in a number of nanoseconds is not available, you know, in your camera shop or on Amazon. So the Sony something, one of the latest Sony mirrorless cameras, that's got a global shutter. I think the fastest shutter speed on that is 1/80,000th of a second. Okay, 1/80,000th of a second. A nanosecond is a billionth of a second. A billionth of a second. Now, like I said, so that's like many orders of magnitude different, isn't it? So no, your average Joe Blow is not taking pictures in nanoseconds. Not happening at all. Those cameras, those devices that can do captures in nanoseconds, they depend on lasers and really advanced methods using polarization of light. I had to look at it very quickly, and you know, it's not your average camera, let's say that. And you're not going to go on Amazon and order one for £10.99 from China or whatever. No, not going to happen. So that's a second mistake. So we had the first photograph. No, it wasn't there. The second, this nanosecond photography. No, not happening. Okay. So it's 2 mistakes so far, and we're only 1 minute and 7 seconds in, and that included the B-roll. Oh, okay.
So over the next couple of stops, we're going to take you around Paris and talk to you about everything that you might want to see if you came to visit here, from Henri Cartier-Bresson's hunting spots to the invention of the daguerreotype. We're going to head out and meet Yossiak in Sanya for the next couple of days. Okay,
so she said Henri Cartier-Bresson's hunting spots. Okay, let's see how many of those they show us, shall we?
She can talk to you about how she captures photography and street photographs, whether that's in the United Kingdom or travelling abroad. But first of all, we're going to go and have a little explore, and hopefully you can learn something that you can share in the pub with your friends, or maybe tell your mum. Who knows? So let's go.
Okay, so like I said, this is like the third time I've tried to make this video. So it's, you know, I know what's coming, even though I'm pretending not to. So we'll check up on those facts that you can tell your friends down the pub. Yeah, we'll come back to that. So facts in the pub. I'm going to write that down to remind me. Facts in the pub. We've already had 2 blinding errors, but there we go.
Get going. So we've come 6 minutes down the road to Boulevard du Temple, or Crime de Boulevard, which loosely translates as the Crime Boulevard. And at this point we see photography in the hands of an engineer. We're looking at about 9 years later.
Still no dates. So it hasn't given us a date of when the first picture was taken. You know, whether they've got the right place or not is immaterial at this point. And now it's 9 years later. 9 years later than what? 9 years later than what? Because later, yeah, okay. So 9 years later than what? I was going to do a bit of a spoiler then about something she says later. But so 9 years later than what? Okay, we still haven't had a date. We haven't seen a picture yet either.
And Daguerre, Louis Daguerre, has basically got frustrated as an engineer with the technology that photography offers. And at this point, the shutter speed levels were hours, and photographing people, therefore, was almost impossible. So he began the process of shortening that period of time, and he was incredibly successful and got it down to 15 minutes. And that was a type of photography that is known today as the daguerreotype. As an engineer, he was really interested in the process.
Be interested to know how the daguerreotype differs from what came later. Yeah, that would be interesting to know, wouldn't it? I guess we're not going to, I don't think we're going to hear that.
And in how to fix an issue that he felt was really important to the world. And later on, which we will cover, his methods and his technology increases is how we got to the place we are now, where we can take photos in nanoseconds.
No, no, they're not. No, it's not, because you know, your shutter speed or whatever is dependent on the sensitivity of your recording medium, whether that's you know, whatever that is, whether it's, you know, bitumen or gum bichromate or silver nitrate or the sensor in your camera, and to say that I think there's I'm not sure that there's a direct link between those devices able to use to photograph in nanoseconds, you know, those things I talked about earlier, and Daguerre's advances in film emulsion, or his advances in the recording medium. I'm not sure how straight a line you can draw between those two things. I mean, she seems to mention it. Seems, oh well, then he invented this, and then Kodak came along, and then you know, this is a very simplistic. You know, I know it's like a 20-minute video or whatever, but you know, just saying that is I find it problematic anyway.
So why are we stood here? You might be thinking, this doesn't look that great, it's not that fancy, you know, why have we come here? But this is the place where Louis Daguerre took the first known picture of a human being. It was completely by accident. So he was trying to test his process. He was taking pictures of buildings in the place where he lived, which is here. And in that process, he ended up capturing a shoe shiner. The reason that became so famous is because a shoe shiner does move, but the person having their shoe shines will often sit there, even back in that time, and basically...
Even back in that time. We still don't know what time this is, do we? But even back in that time, a person having his shoes shined still sat down. He didn't perform the can behind the shoe shiner, or recite the complete works of William Shakespeare or Voltaire or anything like that. Still don't know when this is, by the way.
Basically just stay still. So 15 minutes of this person staying still, and here we are today looking back at the first known picture of a human being. So this meant that right here in this street in Paris, a human being remained motionless enough to be immortalized in history forever. So here we are, quite near the Notre Dame. As you may be aware, the Notre Dame is under reconstruction following a fire a couple of years ago. But that isn't going to stop us. So after 1838, street...
Right, so we've actually got a date. We've got a date now, so 1838. Right, so we're talking first half of the 19th century. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a date now.
Photography and documentary photography began to boom. Those that could get hold of cameras were really invested in making them work and exploring what photography was and how they could do that. And obviously before that point, documentary was really in the form of paintings. Around this period, between sort of 38 and...
Really? Documentary painters? Okay, yes. Okay, whatever.
Maybe 1890, Eugene Adget became the photographer that really coined the term street photography. He only took pictures of the Parisian streets and nothing else. So why are we stood here? There's a period in Paris called the Haussmann era. Now, this is a little more architecture and a little less photography, but it plays a huge role in where photography went from that point onwards. And
okay, so I don't know if she's going to mention when the Haussmann era is, but the only period she's mentioned is like 1838, was it, to 1890, that sort of 50 odd years. Was the Haussmann period the whole of that, or what? It's really playing fast and loose with history, and this is the history of street after all, so you'd hope for a bit of rigour, wouldn't you?
Why it went international. So the Haussmann era is an era where a lot of poverty-stricken Parisians were forced out of their homes. And the goal for Haussmann was to develop new buildings. modern buildings, buildings that were identical across Paris and gave it more of a clean look and feel. Now, behind us is a pre-Haussmann era building. There are 3 left in Paris. One is the Notre Dame, but as I mentioned, we can't go there today, so this is why we're here instead. Now, as you can see behind me, there is this really beautiful, detailed Gothic architecture feel to it, whereas the balconies that you see in Paris today, the clean round buildings with flowers going all the way up, this really frustrated the Parisians, because compared to this, they didn't feel that it had the beauty that the original Paris architecture had. So this is really where a lot more of the standard people, normal people, were playing around with photography and where cameras began to spread across Paris. They were documenting the destruction of their...
The standard people. Right. The standard people.
Their own towns, their own villages, their own parts of the city, and they wanted to capture that moment in history to show people what had happened to the Paris that they knew and loved.
So we're going to see some of these pictures that they took. Wouldn't it be great? I mean, this is the history of street photography. Wouldn't it be great to see some of these photographs? Wouldn't it be great to see some photographs where that guy she mentioned earlier, who, you know, defined street photography or whatever, only took pictures of the streets of Paris? Are we going to see any of these pictures, even in passing, instead of this stuff here, you know, a painting on the side of a wall? Are we going to see any pictures at all?
Now, this brings us up to 1900s. Now, I know what you're thinking, we've gone through a lot already, and you maybe didn't know that photography was that old, but the 1900s is where a lot of the stuff that you might know about and might remember comes into play. So as we moved into the 20th century, Parisian photography became more self-conscious. And that brings us on to people like the Surrealists and Bluesy, who initially started to become more famous in 1924 when he met the crème de la crème of Parisians and started hanging out with people like Picasso and Matisse. So photography as we know it was changing and adapting the same way that painting was throughout these eras. Now we move into the 1950s and we start to see people like Henri Cartier-Bresson and Diane Arbus creating work.
Okay, it's Diane Arbus, not Diane Arbus. Can you hear that kind of as if someone's hammering away in the background, or is that just me?
Now, in terms of where we're standing, the Café de Fleurs is a very famous cafe where Magnum Photos was first created, but we'll come on to that shortly. First of all, we're going to talk about Henri Cartier-Bresson. So, Bresson started photographing really in 1940, and his tool of choice... Oh, something went wrong. Okay, welcome back. I think I've found where I got... When he met the crème de la crème of Parisians and started hanging out with people like Picasso and Matisse. So photography as we know it was changing and adapting the same way that painting was throughout these eras. Now we move into the 1950s and we start to see people like Henri Cartier-Bresson and Diane Arbus creating work. Now, in terms of where we're standing, the Café de Fleurs is a very famous cafe where Magnum Photos was first created, but we'll come on to that shortly. First of all, we're going to talk about Henri Cartier-Bresson. So,
Henri Cartier-Bresson, you know, one of the great street photographers. You know, everyone loves him, don't they? He's like the Louis Armstrong of street photography. Yeah, whatever your style of jazz, Louis Armstrong was like the man. You know, even if you didn't play jazz anything like he played jazz, he was the man. He was the man who like, you know, set the standard. You know, even if you're the most contemporary, out there jazz musician, you know, Armstrong is still the man. And it's similar with Cartier-Bresson for street photographers. You might not take photographs like him, but he's, you know, he kind of he led the way, if you were, as it were, when he was taking pictures.
Bresson started photographing really in 1940, and his tool of choice at this point.
Oh dear, no. No, he didn't start photographing in 1940 because he started photographing more like in 1930. His first exhibition, his first major exhibition was in 1932, I think, or 33 maybe. One of his most famous pictures, or several of his most famous pictures, in fact. But you know, the one of the man jumping over a puddle in Paris. I think that was taken in 1932, and that is kind of the essence of the decisive moment. What else? Yeah, in 1937 he came to the UK, and yeah, what else? Yes, in 1937 he came to the UK and documented the coronation of King George VI for Paris for a Paris French newspaper. So no, he didn't start taking pictures in 1940. In fact, in 1940, he was captured by the Germans in the Battle of France and held a prisoner of war for nearly 3 years. So don't think that would be when his photographic career, or that's when he started really taking pictures. I'm pretty sure that the access to film in German prisoner of war camps was limited. Okay, so let's go back a bit. So that's another mistake. We're up to about 3 that I've spotted so far. Still want to know what that in the background is.
First of all, we're going to talk about Henri Cartier-Bresson. So Bresson started photographing really in 1940, and his tool of choice at this point was the Leica M3 and a little.
Okay, so not in 1940, and his tool of choice at this point wouldn't have been the Leica M3 because the Leica M3 wasn't introduced until 1954, I think, 1954. His camera of choice pre-war, you know, in the late 1930s, would have been the Leica 3, which is a totally different camera. It's a Barnack Leica, and I'll try and show you the difference. Excuse me for 1 minute. I'm going to get my Leica M2, which is very similar to the Leica M3. I've got it here. Right, here we go. Here's my Leica M2, and it's a rangefinder camera. So there's you look through the viewfinder here, and there's a little patch in the middle where a second image is projected through this window and onto the viewfinder, and you focus the camera so that the second image and the image that you're looking through the viewfinder matches up, and then it's in focus. Okay, and then there's frame lines inside the viewfinder here, which show you which go with whatever lens. So if you've got a 28mm lens, actually not 28mm, so a 35mm lens, you'll see a set of 35mm frame lines. And if you've got a 50, you'd see a 50 set, a set of 50mm, and a 90, you'd see a set of 90mm frame lines to aid you in composition. Okay, so that is the M2 or the M series, and I think M comes from some German compound word, which means basically everything in one place. So your viewfinder and your focusing mechanism is all in one. Now the Leica 3, or the Barnack Leicas, and I think Cartier-Bresson had gone through the whole series over the 1930s, from the Leica 1 to the 2, and finally in the late 30s to the 3. The Leica Barnacks, they didn't have that. They had a window for the rangefinder. So you look through the rangefinder window and focus, and then they had a separate viewfinder for composition, and that viewfinder wouldn't have frame lines in it for different focal lengths. It was just approximately 50mm field of view, and then if you had a different lens, you'd put an auxiliary viewfinder on. Okay, and when I'm out, I usually use an auxiliary viewfinder instead of, even when I'm using my my modern Nikon camera, I like to use the auxiliary viewfinder because it just I think it makes things a bit quicker for me. So that's a Leica 3, an III. That was what a Cartier-Bresson would have been using in the late 30s. And it wasn't until 1954 that the M3, which is what she said he was using, was actually introduced by Leica. So that's another mistake, isn't it? Another mistake. So I think we're up to 4 now. 4 mistakes.
Nifty 50. This was his camera that went everywhere with him. Every picture you see, the decisive moment, these famous shots were all taken on an analog camera.
Well, no, they weren't. They were taken on an analog camera, but not on an M3. Because, you know, his famous shot of the guy jumping over the puddle thing, that was in 1932. I think the cyclist, I'm not sure if the cyclist was also in the early 30s, but the guys looking through the hoarding, I think that was pre-war. Yeah, there's, you know, a lot. In fact, it's probably his most famous pictures, the pictures that come up whenever someone says Cartier-Bresson and the decisive moment, they were taken pre-war, not in after the war or after 1940.
So you might remember from earlier that we talked about a man called Daguerre. And the daguerreotype, as we mentioned before, was all about shutter speed and increasing that. Now in the 1950s, we're up to a mere few seconds, if that. And
okay, another mistake. Okay, so here's my M2, which, as I say, is basically very much, it's a kind of slightly lower spec M3. And it goes, the shutter speed on there, I don't know if you can see that, goes up to 1,000th of a second. So it goes from 1 second, it's got a bulb, which is like you press it and it holds the shutter open until you release it. But it goes from 1 second up to 1,000th of a second. Okay, so we're not talking seconds. In fact, if even in the 1930s, the Leica 2 and 3, I don't know about the Leica 1, the 2 and 3, I'm pretty sure they went up to 1/500th of a second. And that picture of the guy jumping over the puddle that I keep on going about, you know, that wouldn't have been possible if your shutter speeds were you know, in seconds, because he'd just be a blur, a total blur. You probably wouldn't be able to see him. It would just be a picture of a puddle. Yeah, unless you had a really powerful flash, and but we're not going to go there. He didn't. So, right. So no, it wasn't. Oh, it was down to seconds. No, it was down to fractions of a second. 1,000th, 500th, 250th.
The analog cameras we're using have really progressed from your large format cameras. Now they're really compact.
Let's catch up to where we were. I'm really not very good at this, am I? No, don't agree with me. Okay, got back to it quicker than last time.
Have really progressed from your large format cameras. Now they're really compact, really easy to hide.
So what did the large format camera look like? What did the cameras look like, you know, back in these people that are taking pictures of the slum clearances and the Haussmann period in Paris? What do they look like? And we still haven't seen any pictures. We've seen one picture, which was the picture of the shoe shine guy, and we haven't seen any pictures at all. We're 7 minutes in. This is a history of street photography, and we haven't seen any pictures.
Really easy to shoot with. So gone were the cameras of the past, and into the 20th century came the point and shoot. Now, again, you couldn't change your lenses. This wasn't something that you could adapt and alter as you went on shooting. So it's important to remember that whilst the picture...
Pretty sure that was, that camera she's got there is a later 20th century. It says, and we're into the 20th century and the point and shoot. Pretty sure that camera there, that Kodak camera, is unlikely to be in the early 20th century. Let's say that. I don't know what model it is, but I think it's probably post-war, a post-war camera. Yeah, so into the 20th century, and we've got that. Really?
Pictures may not be as crisp and clear as we see them today. They were working with a lot more limitations. So why are we stood outside this cafe? Well, there are 4 names in photography that you might remember, and those are the 4 founders of Magnum Photos. Later.
Well, this is quite interesting. I find this bit interesting. I'm going to go and I'm being hit by the sun here. It's that time of the day when the sun comes through the window. So I just pulled down the shade. You won't be able to see this, but I find this quite interesting because oh, this is me pulling down the shade. That's better. Because, you know, I mean, I'll talk later about who this is aimed at, this video, but it strikes me that it's so simplified that they think they're addressing people who really don't know much. But then, oh, perhaps you remember these photographers, who they're going to be.
To become 3 and eventually 1. So that was Henri Cartier-Bresson, Robert Capa, David Seymour, and George Roger. George Roger dropped out to...
Okay, Seymour was known as Chim. Or Chim, I think. Yeah, Chim. That's important. And we'll find out in a minute.
Pursue his own career. But these 3 gentlemen had met and been introduced through friends and mutual acquaintances, and they'd come to this cafe behind us to have a conversation about how to conquer the world through photography. The aim was simple. It was to capture all of the important moments in history and ensure they weren't being missed. So the 3 remaining members, Capa, Chim, and Bresson.
Chim. So a minute ago it was David Seymour. David Seymour? A minute ago it was Seymour. Now it's Chim. Where did Chim come from? So she didn't say Seymour, also known as Chim. It's just, oh, it was Seymour, and now it's Chim. And
decided to tackle different areas in the world. Capa would remain in Europe. He later died in conflict whilst photographing wars.
He didn't die in conflict fighting wars. Photographing wars. He was photographing a particular war when he was killed. Also, he didn't stay in Europe because he was killed in Vietnam, documenting the French Indochina War. And he died in 1954. I believe he stood on the landmine. Yeah, so photographing wars. No, he was photographing a war, not in Europe. So she said he stayed in Europe. Well, the reason he stayed in Europe, he didn't go off to, you know, document a particular area, was that he stayed so that he could go to places in a kind of responsive way. Yeah, so he died in the French Indochina War, you know, the first Vietnam War, if you will, in 1954. Which was like the last year, I think, of that war, towards the end of it anyway. Yeah, so there we go.
And Chim met the same fate. He took over the south of the world. He went.
So Chim died in Egypt, in just after the the ceasefire in the Suez Crisis, when Britain and France tried to basically take control of the Suez Canal after the Egyptian government had decided to nationalise it. Yeah, and he actually died after the conflict was officially over. There was a ceasefire in place, and he was killed by some Egyptian soldiers. I don't know the exact circumstances, but yeah, and that was in 1956. So Kappa in 1954, Shim in 1956. Okay, so we're talking after 1956 now.
Went to places like Brazil, the Amazon rainforest. Cartier-Bresson took India and Asia. And when Cartier-Bresson returned, he'd found out that his 2 fellow colleagues and the 2 other founding members of Magnum had passed away whilst photographing. So at this point, we find a lonely and somewhat sad Cartier-Bresson in Paris, wondering what to do with this organisation that they had created.
Okay, it's not lonely because I've got a list here of photographers who were associated I mean, the membership of Magnum is a kind of in steps. You become an associate member, then and then you become a full member sometime later on. So people who are already working with Magnum, either as associate or full members by 1956, which is when Shim died, Ernst Haas, Elliot Erwitt, Eve Arnold, Eugene Smith. Okay, Eve Arnold started in 51 as an associate and became a full member in 57. Eugene Smith started in 55 and became a full member in 57. Ernst Haas, 1949. Elliot Erwitt, 1953. So, no, he wasn't all on his own, wandering lonely as a cloud.
And Magnum photos hadn't really taken off. So the question is, does he continue with his own work and explore the world alone, or is he going to continue building this fold? Now, with the 3 founding members, there are 3 people to tackle the world, and 1 man alone can't do that. And this is where we begin to introduce other photographers to what we now know as Magnum Photos worldwide. From this point onwards, Cartier-Bresson, a very young photographer at the age of 28, began interviewing other photographers who'd heard about.
Okay, so there's another mistake, isn't there? Now, we're talking after 56 here, when Shim died. And he said, at the age of 28, he's a young photographer at the age of 28. Now, I know for a fact that Cartier-Bresson was born in 1908. So when he was 28, it was 1936, not 1956. I mean, you can find these things out on the internet. You can find all these things out on the internet. You don't even have to just trust Wikipedia. if you don't trust Wikipedia, for your knowledge, you could look on the Magnum. I mean, she's going to say stuff about Magnum, and she said stuff about Magnum. You can look on the Magnum website. There's an excellent history of the organisation and all of the members. Yeah. So it's riddled with errors. I don't understand why. These things are so simple to find out. It's not like you have to go to a library and start, pouring through a book.
About across the globe. And as we mentioned, at this point, photography had really gone worldwide. It still isn't what you know today, where everybody has a camera, but it had definitely expanded into press and into news. One of those people was Don McCullum, who he interviewed in the cafe behind us.
Okay. McCullum is a great photographer. He documented he made some brilliant pictures in the Vietnam War, the American version, including this very famous picture that he took, 1,000 Yard Stare, I believe it's called. Yeah. So he joined in 1967. So we've got this. He came back in. So Cartier-Bresson came back after the death of Kappa and Shim. That was around the late 50s, and he started looking for people and building up the agency. And then we're in 1967, and Don McCullum. I mean, as if he spent 10 years wandering around looking for people. Well, no. In 1961, Magnum, pretty much mob-handed, went to document the making of the film The Misfits with Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe. So, and I think what they produced was in Life magazine. So, I don't know, it's just so fuzzy. This history is so fuzzy. It's just as if time was a big kind of blob and everything kind of moves around.
Viewed his portfolio and teamed up with Life magazine to make Magnum Photos what it is today. Now,
right, so she's conflating that time period, isn't she? She's squishing it together. They were doing stuff for Time and Life and whatever in the 60s, and now it's to the late 60s, and that's when he joined up with Time or Life or whichever one she said. It's ahistorical. This whole thing is ahistorical. It's supposed to be a history of street. There's, it's riddled with historical inaccuracies. And not just little ones, not like, it's off by a month or off by a year, but 10 years, 20 years.
Now, if we fast forward a little bit, in 1994, Martin Parr welcomed into the fold. Now, Martin is an art photographer, and that really did change the face of Magnum forever. We're not going to cover that, although it is a really important moment in street photography because it wasn't in Paris and it certainly wasn't here. But for now,
right, so it wasn't in Paris and it wasn't here, so we don't need to talk about it. So they're in Paris, all they're talking about is stuff that happened in Paris. So this isn't the history of street because, street photography, especially now, is much bigger than Paris. And, it's, from the 50s to 60s to 70s, the 80s, 90s, now is much bigger than just Paris. And big things happened in street photography that definitely did not happen in Paris. So to call this a history of street is just, I don't know. Is YouTube covered by the Trades Description Act? I really can't say. But if it was, this video would be in court tomorrow, in a small claims court.
now we're going to go and shoot, because how can you not when you're standing in the place that Cartier-Bresson basically changed the world of photography forever. And as much as I would love to use my Canon camera, which we'll come on to later, for now...
Oh, there we go. I'm going to use my Canon camera, but I can't because I want to be all kind of hip and trendy and use my film point and shoot by Kodak, which is, they don't make cameras anymore, so they're not a rival camera maker to Canon.
Now I'm going old school with a point and shoot. So that brings us here to the Collège de France. And the reason we're here today is because Roland Barthes started writing Camera Lucida in 1977. So not only did he lecture right here in this very college, although a lot of things have changed, but he also was able to write and publish this book in his time here.
Have we noticed that this video is 10 minutes 53 seconds so far? We haven't had one picture later than 1838 or whatever it was. But the only picture you've seen by one of the people mentioned in in this video is this one by Don McCullum. There's this thing called show, don't tell, and this is, things like a history of street photography I know if you start showing pictures, you're having to curate a history, but this, at least it shows some sort of progression, which is what they're trying to do here. But they're just talking. It's just talk, 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 and some really awful B-roll, and talk, 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 and some wrong stuff. You know, it'd be one thing if it was accurate, and we seem to be drawing to the end of the history bit, but there's still like 10 minutes left in the video.
Now, this is one of the most read books internationally. Worldwide, universities all over
About photography. Not one of the, it's one of the widest read books about photography.
the globe will read this and study their photography from it.
Yeah, that'd be the students in the university, not the actual university.
So that brings us to an end of our little history tour through Paris, France. Obviously, we want you to join us over the next coming weeks, and tomorrow we're going to go and meet Yossi Akinzanya and introduce her to you for this street photography course. But at this point, photography has gone global. To this day, everybody carries a camera in their pocket. Your phone, everything you own sort of bases itself around photography. And if you go on holiday, I'm sure
Everything you own bases itself around photography. This is just word salad, isn't it? It's just, here's some words, and just put them together and make a totally, you know, wrong statement. Ugh.
most of your parents, you and your children are taking pictures. So for now, thank you so much for listening to this, and what better way to end the day than reading my Roland Barthes book, Outside of the Collage de France.
Hi, I'm Yossi and I'm here with Wex Photo and Video, and we...
Right, so this is, so that's the history. This is a 21-minute video. The history took 12 minutes, so we've got 9 minutes left of meeting this person, which, okay, she's the person who's going to take us through the rest of the series, and, you know, she'll be guiding us through whatever she's doing and talking about how she takes pictures. So we've got 9 minutes of finding out about herself.
We are in Paris. I'm here because I'm part of their masterclass for street photography, and I kind of want to tell you guys a bit more about me. So as I mentioned, my name is Yossi and I've been doing photography for about 6 years now. It's come to, I kind of started
Okay, before we go on, let's go back to that facts in the pub thing. So, I mean, if all those facts that you're going to be talking in the pub about your mates and impressing them, they're all going to be wrong, pretty much. all of them are going to be wrong. So you're only going to look smart if your friends are even more stupid than you are. Okay, and it's not difficult to look smart in front of stupid people, even by being slightly less stupid. Okay, let's carry on.
photography where I explored every different area, so from fashion to getting together with people and trying to do editorial shoots that you would kind of see in magazines.
Fashion, so from fashion to fashion editorials.
Spreads, and trying to submit those and trying to get submitted to all these places.
Oh dear.
To even doing travel, to doing weddings for family, to doing events, to doing corporate headshots. And I just found that it wasn't really for me.
So have you noticed we've seen more pictures by her, and we've seen more pictures from her in 40 seconds than we did for the whole history of street photography, when we only saw one, plus this one, which isn't even a street photograph.
Until I got to the point where I was really struggling with being social and having that anxiety when it came to shoots. And one day I said, you know what, I'm just going to go down to London Fashion Week by myself. I don't really have any friends in the creative sphere, and I don't really have any photography friends to...
Okay, so she's got no friends, and so she's been through the fashion, she's been through fashion editorial, she's been through the events, and she just pushed it all away, and she's going down to London Fashion Week. Okay.
Go down with. So I just said, you know what, I see everyone go each year. This would be a great way to kind of talk to.
Everyone goes. So she's got no friends, but everyone goes down there. You know, the whole of Britain, if not the whole of the world. The rest of the world, or at least the rest of Britain, is totally empty because everyone is down at Fashion Week in London. Oh, it's so. But you can't even get a bus. Or that you can't get on the train, there's so many people there. Can't get on the tube, can't get into a restaurant, it takes 5 hours to get a McDonald's.
People, put myself out my comfort zone, and I loved it. I said, okay, this is great. This is kind of where I got into street photography, but it was still very fashion focused. And then.
So this isn't street photography, well it kind of is, but it's basically, I'm going to a place where there's lots of people walking around, going to and from shows and stuff, and they're all kind of vain and narcissistic, and I'm going to take pictures of them being vain and narcissistic because they're in a vain and narcissistic industry, or want to be. Okay, so that's my street photography up to this point.
And I think over the pandemic, when things kind of opened up again, I started to travel, so it kind of then moved from being fashion street photography into being more documentary.
Fashion street photography. I mean, is that even a thing? Really? So she went to one thing and took these pictures at Fashion Week, and then, I moved from fashion street photography, 2 or 3 days, or a whole week, to
Documentary and street style. So that's where I'm kind of.
Street style. I don't know what street style is. I know what street photography is, but I don't know what street style is. Okay, so that sounds like, it's something like editorial photography, but taken as if it was street photography. So photography as if it was street photography, not street photography, as if. That's what style means to me.
Today, I've been going around. This is my 3rd time in Paris this year, and I've been doing a lot of street photography, and it's just been amazing to kind of show different cultures, lifestyle, and just being able to see those little details and things. So it's amazing to kind of go to a place and shoot tourist locations, but it's just the people that make these places, I find. And yeah, that's what I really love about street photography, and I can't wait to kind of show you guys how I find those images, find those moments, and yeah. There's so much I like about Paris.
Okay, so for me, that's enough of an introduction. Okay, this is me, this is what I've done. I'm in Paris, I like coming to Paris. Maybe a bit more why I like coming to Paris.
From the way they stack their chairs in their cafes to how different they look to places you would find in London, I just love.
Okay, newsflash, places in Paris look different from the places in London. End of newsflash.
How things look, documenting the different relationships here, because, you know, Paris is seen as the city of love, so it's so nice to see all the different displays of affection. But in terms of photos, in terms of editing, I've really grown a style. So when.
Right, so now while we're in Paris, this is me, this is what I've done. I like coming to Paris, this is why I like coming to Paris, and then jump, I've got an editing style.
When I first started my photography journey, I kind of was just trying to pick up from all the people around me. I guess it's great while you're starting out, because I guess you get to figure out what you like and, you know, shooting different things. But the great thing about it now is, like, I've grown into an area where I'm like, this is what I love, this is what I care for. And then with my style.
So we've already had the intro, we've already had the journey. Okay, there's like 7 more minutes of this to come. We've already had the journey, we've had why she likes Paris. That's enough. Let's get on with it. Let's get on. We could have that 7 minutes could have been, you know, a better history of street photography with pictures and stuff. But no, we've got another 7 minutes of this. I know what's coming. So, sorry.
My editing now, it's got to the point where people can see my pictures and they're like, oh, this is Yossi stuff. I've only got to the point now, 6 years in, where I'm like, street photography, documenting. And sharing stories is exactly where I want to be. It's definitely not a straightforward journey. It will take some time. You may go back and forth, you may go in circles as well, but that's part of the process. So over the years, like I said, my sister used to blog, and you know, being the annoying little sister I am, I decided
Right. So now it's blog, blah blah blah, and well, I'll come to the end of it.
I want to do that because she seems to be getting stuff, she seems to be enjoying it. And I said, sure, I'll do that too. So a lot of my work was fashion heavy. And
so now we've gone back again. So we've had the journey, and now we're going back. So, I mean, we're going back. Is that wibbly wobbly history thing, isn't it? Things happen like that, not like that. So we've had that, but now we're going to have this and go back.
And a lot of the opportunities I was getting was because I was a blogger myself. Then I also grew my Instagram for my blog over the years. And then kind of during the whole Black Lives Matter phase, that was an opportunity for me to kind of talk more and be more honest about my experiences. And through that, I got a lot more exposure to my page, and I grew quite quickly during that phase. And it was quite overwhelming, but it was also great to kind of have these new opportunities in front of me, although I didn't really love how it came about, because I wish people did discover me through my own content, but that's...
So thanks to Black Lives Matter, she made a name for herself. Yeah, it's fine, you know, you've got to do what you've got to do. But she regrets that somehow. And it's all about, you know, growing her Instagram and things like that. So I get the feeling that she's kind of a bit, you know, a prisoner of the internet at the moment. What do they call it? Terminally online. Yeah. So because we've already had a history, and now she's going back and sort of filling it up with more kind of stuff.
That's how things happened. So with that came a lot more opportunities in terms of creating content for other brands. So it came to a point where I was changing as a creative person, where it was all about aesthetics and doing things for brands, doing things for people, where I didn't have enough time to create content for myself, and I missed that. But it got to a point where I had one day in Notting Hill where I did 3 shoots back to back, and I took people, I would literally pick them up, finish the shoot, drop them, pick up the next person and go to the same location, and I just found that...
What a hero. What an absolute hero. She's doing 3 shoots in one day. Absolute hero.
I was grateful for the people I was meeting, but I just didn't find it very interesting, because it was the same kind of thing, same kind of outfits, where it was everything that was on trend, which is why I really enjoyed Fashion Week, because
that is fashion, isn't it? That is what fashion is all about. What is trending at the moment, clothes-wise.
It was very expressive what people wear, whereas when it got to street photography and, you know...
Okay, so at Fashion Week, they wear all the outlandish stuff, right, on the edge, and that comes slowly down and to the stuff you see in the magazines, right? I think that's my impression of it. They do the ordinary clothes there as well, but that's where you see all the, you know, all the weird clothes that people are never actually going to wear, mixed in with the stuff that they are going to wear. So there's a lot of that kind of look at me. Well, it's fashion, isn't it? You know. So that's probably why she preferred that, because there's so much more going on, as opposed to by the time you're getting down to photographing for companies and trying to market their stuff, it's just, you know, whatever is in fashion at the moment.
Just really bringing in those moments, I just feel like I've really changed in that sense. And that's where it kind of turned for me, where I realized that actually what I was putting out wasn't very inspiring. And I'm someone that when I look at content and take it in, I want to be inspired.
Well, with respect, I could have told you that, because, I mean, I haven't, you know, if you're on a thing like this, you show your best work. Okay, if you're on here, you show your best work, and well, you know, what she's shown so far is, you know, mediocre, I guess you might say. Mediocre, in my opinion.
I found that a lot of the stuff I was taking in and putting out was just aesthetics. I decided to kind of remove my Instagram. I'd grown a following to around 16K, which I was very grateful for. But I decided I kind of want to pull back, start over again, and just realign myself with what I truly cared about and what was important to me. I've kind of realized that street photography is where it is for me, and with so many important things and moments happening each day in the news, you know, there's a want in me to kind of be able to share that. So that's how I've kind of transitioned from fashion and outfit of the day kind of things into more of a street style.
Street style, is that street style again? Street style.
Rather people don't know I'm taking pictures, just so it feels a bit more authentic and not overly posed kind of style of photography. So with the whole kind of starting over,
we're going to see the irony of that very shortly. So she just said, oh, they're taking pictures that aren't, you know, people might not know they're being taken, and they're not, you know, overly posed, etc. That's what she wants to get into.
The process, it was a hard decision, but I think I was so amped up by the point where I was just like, do you know what? There's more to being a creative than just money. There's more to it than income. It can be very easy to be led by money, and that's what I felt I was doing, where I was putting my health, putting my social life, putting everything aside just because I wanted to kind of have that income coming in, and I just realized enough is enough. You can say no to money, you can say no to things, you know, you don't need to keep pushing yourself and overwork.
Right, now we're on some sort of hippie self-help type thing, are we? You can say no to money, you can say no to work. But, well, yes, some people can. Some people can, is she? Not everyone.
Working yourself. My thing was walking away. I just wanted to be honest. I don't want to be seen as an influencer, but as a content creator, and you know.
Okay, I don't want to be seen as an influencer, but as a content creator, oh, it's just accidental if I am an influencer, you know. Well, how did you get this job? How did you get this? Because how did you get onto this video? How are you, you know, Wex has got like 119,000 subscribers. It's a fairly big organisation. How did you get to be the star of this masterclass in street photography? Huh? How did that happen?
My journey, I wanted to be very honest with it. I haven't taken the traditional route of taking courses, doing a degree, doing it as a topic. I just kind of picked up the camera and I've learned to use it to my best ability. So that's one thing I really would love to get across, is that you don't need to know everything, and you don't always have to kind of go with what everyone else is doing. Your journey will be very different. Mine was. When it comes to starting out with street photography, my advice would be to do and work with what you have. Don't feel like you need to kind of buy the latest thing to kind of feel like you're keeping up, because a lot of the time with photography, I do believe it's the person that makes the photos, not the equipment, because...
That's profound, isn't it? I mean, that is such an original thought. It's amazingly profound. I've never heard that before, especially on YouTube. It's the person, not the equipment. Oh, amazing. Amazing.
I could have this camera and you can give the same camera to another person, and what we shoot can end up being completely different. It's about learning to use what you have, learning to make the most of the features, and just being really comfortable. Also, don't be nervous to go up to people, especially in street photography. If it's a fashion element, people are very friendly.
It's that fashion. It's a fashion element. People are friendly. It's like fashion style, street style fashion element. I don't know what that means. It's word salad, isn't it?
Great to kind of start conversations, because you never know the people you're shooting. Sometimes it could lead to amazing things and open so many doors. And don't be afraid to also, you know, just post your work everywhere. Just keep pushing, because again, it carries so far. You don't know who it's going to end up on. Like, it's the same thing with tweets, and when you find certain photographers, you just have to think about, well, how did this person make it to my feed? It could be as simple as someone resharing their picture on their story, and it gets to you and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with this person's work. And that's just how it is. It's just about, you know, hoping that you land on the right person's page. And
right, so that's fine. So this is about people who maybe aren't famous, okay, and they're on the old Instagram. She's clearly, you know, a prisoner of the internet. Also terminally online by this. So people out there, you know, taking pictures. Oh, I really like their work because they come up on Instagram because of the algorithm. It's popped up or whatever on my feed. What about, you know, the actual greats of street photography? Don't they inspire you? Don't they inspire you? Winogrand and, you know, all that lot. Bruce Gilden. Okay, Deanne Arbus. Okay, I'm on a roll now, aren't I? Okay. That Maya woman that everyone's so in love with at the moment. Okay. Why don't those people inspire you? No, it's as if they don't exist. It's as if street photography started when she started street photography. Oh, sorry, street style photography.
just keep going. Over the next 4 weeks, there's going to be different pieces coming out. So we will be starting off with things like gear. So, you know, what I use, gear in terms of lenses, in terms of how I shoot, whether it's shooting raw, things like that. Then there's also
Camera strap, very important camera strap. Me and my camera strap.
taking static street photography, so that can be things that are easier to do and plan. So that's things like taking pictures of buildings, you know, getting your framing right for that, settings, and then onto the bit more harder stuff. So actually shooting people, growing your confidence, asking questions and going up to people. Like also, you know, when it comes to street photography, what's right, you know, when it comes to like actually.
That isn't at all posed, is it? Oh, excuse me. Blah, blah, blah. That isn't at all overly posed, isn't it? Remember earlier she said, oh, I like taking pictures, not overly posed, and maybe the people don't know they're being photographed. Wow, you mean like that?
Actually shooting people's faces, or just being able to maybe even shoot people and them not be aware, you know, things like that. And, you know, just knowing that you can take those pictures without feeling too stressed or feeling too overwhelmed. So if you're watching this masterclass and you take anything from it, or you do take any photos, we would love you to share them with us using the hashtags Wex.
Okay, so that's it. So first we had like a 10 or 11 minute history of photography, right? And then we had this photographer here, Yassi, was it? Yossi? Go through in a kind of roundabout way how she became a photographer, and then why she likes Paris, and then more, let's go round and round, and then a kind of, Instagram, yeah, that's where I get my inspiration, and I was taking pictures and they weren't inspiring, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, what you're showing wasn't inspiring either, frankly, in my opinion. I mean, like I said earlier, you think you'd show your best work, okay? Although we did see actually more pictures in that bit where she was showing her work and trying to illustrate her stuff, then in the whole history of street photography, when we only saw one picture, and that was the first picture of a person, 1830, whatever it was, and then all the way up to now, no pictures. So a history of photography without photographs. A history of street photography without photographs. I mean, what can you say? It's awful, absolutely awful. So, and who's it aimed at? Well, it's not aimed at the student. Clearly, it's not aimed at me. It seems to be aimed at people who don't really know much and are happy learning wrong stuff, or people. I mean, that second half seemed to be a kind of people who kind of want to make photography a bit of a side hustle, possibly, or want it as part of their content creation type attempts. It's just kind of just another thing to do. You know, it's totally uninspiring and awful, the whole thing. Absolutely awful. So I'm going to give this a rating. Yes, I'm going to give it a star rating because I think reaction videos, we always, especially with food ones, oh, Gary Eats, oh, yum yum, go and see that channel. He always gives a rating after he's been to somewhere and reacted to the food that he's eaten. So I'm going to give this a rating out of 10 of, and it's the first one, so I'm not going to give it a 1 because there might be something out there worse. So I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. There are 3 more videos in this series. I will be reacting to those over the next couple of months. So let's see if they can raise above 2 out of 10. Maybe get a 3 or 4. And then we're doing an overall average. So hopefully the overall average won't be a 2. Okay, so that's it from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going off to edit it now and put it all together and put stuff in for illustrative purposes and cut out the bits where I look like an idiot. No, I'm not. I'm not going to cut out. I'm going to cut out the bits where I press the wrong button. Okay, so that's where we're at. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end. I don't know how long this video has been. Let's find out, shall we? Let's go back to OBS. It doesn't say, does it? Of course it doesn't. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe and do that stuff. I never ask people to subscribe at the beginning or halfway through the video. Perhaps I should start doing that. I always ask them at the end, if I do ask them at all. I do, in fact, until now, I've just put it in the end credits. You know, I think you should see the goods. You know, you should let people see the goods before you ask them to subscribe. So if you feel like subscribing, please do, and ring the bell and put a like and ring the bell thing, and it'll tell you when the next video will be out, which will hopefully be in about a week's time. I've already filmed it. I just need to edit it. So yeah, thanks for joining me, and I just can't say goodbye, can I? And goodbye. Oh, I hope that makes sense.